Welcome to another interview in the BPDM Innovator series. My name is Orlando,
And my name is Heriberto.
and today we have Renee Teate with us. Renee is currently involved in many interesting projects in the data science field. She currently has the Becoming Data Scientist website at becomingaDataScientist.com, and more recently, she also started the Data Science Learning Directory at datasciguide.com. We'll be talking with her about these and other projects. Welcome, Renee. Where are you talking to us from?
I'm at James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. That's in the Shenandoah Valley on the western side of Virginia.
Cool. That's really great. So before we start, can you give us a quick academic background? Who are you? What do you do? And we're going to be focusing on data science. So how did you get started in data science?
Sure. Well, for the academic background, I started at Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, so I was doing science and tech stuff back in high school, and I decided to do a major in college called Integrated Science and Technology at James Madison University. And it's a pretty neat generalist type of major where you get to learn about biotech, engineering and manufacturing, energy, information and knowledge management, all kinds of different fields, and you take basic classes and everything, and then you choose a concentration. So I chose to concentrate in engineering and manufacturing, but I also did a custom concentration in internet database technology. I had taken a couple classes in college about designing databases and designing websites that connect to databases. So I thought that was really interesting, and I decided to pursue it a little further with some independent study classes. Then when I graduated from college, I started a business with a professor here in Harrisonburg, and we started doing database design and website design for all kinds of companies, government subcontractors or nonprofits in Harrisonburg, things like that. So I got to extend my database skills and really put them into practice. Then a few years later, I started working at Rosetta Stone, which is also located in Harrisonburg, and I was analyzing data for their customer experience team. So we were looking at data for the users of the product, how long from when they purchased to when they signed in, how did they progress through the product, things like that. Mm-hmm. Then I and before I had started working at Rosetta Stone, I worked part-time along with my business at James Madison University. And here I'm a data analyst in the Advancement and Information Services Division, which means that I study the alumni and the fundraising. So both from an engagement point of view of the alums receiving contacts from the university and from their department, and also fundraising, how much money are they giving back, who's giving to which allocation. And so after I worked at Rosetta Stone full-time for a while, I moved into a full-time position here at JMU, and so that's what I currently do. I'm a data analyst. Also, 8 years after finishing undergraduate school, I decided to go to grad school. I originally didn't have an inclination to get a master's degree when I was working for myself, but as I moved into the corporate world, I decided, well, a master's degree really could help me here on my resume. So I started in an online program at University of Virginia. And it's actually a synchronous online program, so it's not kind of go at your own pace. You're actually sitting in on the classes while you're online. So there's students in the classroom, and you're just attending over the internet. That also allowed me to take some classes at Old Dominion University and George Mason University. But more than half of my classes were at University of Virginia, and I got a degree in systems engineering. That's my master's degree. So that's pretty much my educational and work history.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So basically, at some level or another, you've been pretty much always involved in what we now know as data science, or you were dealing with data one way or another. So when did you decide to go deeper and focus more on data science and start all of these cool projects that you're currently working on?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know much about data science until I was in grad school. Now I kind of wish I waited a couple years and did a degree in data science, but I think my systems engineering degree feeds into it pretty well. So while I was in grad school, I was able to take some classes such as machine learning. That was a class at Old Dominion University, and it really challenged me. It was more advanced math than I had ever done before. I was converting code from C++ into Python, and I was brand new to Python. I had done some Visual Basic programming before. I've done SQL my whole career, SQL, but I had never really done much with Python, and I had done very little with C++. So the professor gave us a choice of which language we wanted to program in. So I decided now's my chance to learn Python. I converted all of his sample code over, and that gave me a chance to dive in. So that's when I realized the math part wasn't my strength. That was a struggle, but I really liked understanding how these different algorithms work from a mathematical point of view. And then we moved into the project part of that class where we got to do some, build some data mining algorithms, and I got to study some data from my job. I took some alumni fundraising type of data and used it for a class project. And that's when I really knew, like, this is something I'm really fascinated by and I want to do more. So that's when I started the Becoming a Data Scientist blog, which you can go to becomingadatascientist.com. And I started writing about all the projects I was doing in that class to make sure I kept track and I could go back and look at what I had done and not lose track, because you're going so fast in grad school, it's really hard to remember every little thing you've done. So I posted everything there, and then I started a Twitter account at the same time to connect with other people learning data science. And since then, I guess the rest is history. I've been learning more and more doing more and more projects to learn, communicating with other people online, and launching some other websites. So now I'm a data science learner almost full-time outside of work.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. That's really great experience. So you mentioned specifically the machine learning course in college. Would you say that was your favorite, or at least talking in terms of data science, was that the one that opened your eyes? Did you have another course, favorite course while you were in college?
I would say that was my favorite course that actually has connected the most to being a data scientist. I took some other courses such as optimization, project management, systems engineering, statistics for engineers. So those classes all definitely played a part, but this was the one that tied in most to what I'm doing now. So yeah, okay. I would say that was my favorite, and I could tell you that was ECE 607 at ODU, and it is an online course, so if people want to enroll as a non-degree student at ODU, it's not free, but you can pay and take that graduate level course there.
Great. Yeah, that was actually going to be my next questions. I know that you talk a lot about online resources in some of your blogs. So do you have a favorite online course or online resource that you've seen the last couple of years or couple of months that you've been doing the Becoming Data Scientist blog?
It's really hard for me to pick a favorite.
Maybe it's fine if you have a two or three. I just want, since we have audience from all, from high school to doing their undergrad, even grad students and PhD, and from there on. So we just want to give them, if you have any tips, any things that they might be interested in. So if you have any online course that you can point them to.
Yeah, and this is actually why I started the website datasciguide.com. I think we'll probably get into it more later, but it's pretty overwhelming how many resources there are online. Like, I've kind of tried a little bit of everything. There's no one that stands out to me online as the best resource. There are a lot of really good free textbooks online. There are a lot of good free courses, but they kind of all tie to different levels. So it's hard to know, well, if I'm a true beginner, is this really the course for me? I've taken a class that said it was for beginners, but I got a few classes in, and it got really hard, and it starts making you wonder, if I'm a beginner and I'm finding this difficult already, a beginner's class, maybe I'm not cut out for this, and it could be really discouraging. So what I want to do with the website is when people leave reviews about the different data science content, they tie it to their level. So if it's a high school beginner, they can mention that in their review and select that they're a beginner. And even if you don't finish the content, you could still review it and say, well, this was actually really too hard for me as a beginner. I recommend this instead. And so I'm hoping to collect a lot of information from a lot of people. And as you probably know, data science is such a broad topic. There are people that might be an expert in statistics, but they've never programmed before. Or they could be pretty advanced in Python, but they don't know how to use the machine learning algorithms that you can get as a plugin. So I'm hoping to kind of gauge where people are in their learning process as they review the content, and I hope to develop some learning paths and recommender system from that to help people figure out where to start, where to go next, based on what their end goal is, whether it's visualization or being developing cutting-edge machine learning algorithms, or just using existing machine learning packages to analyze data.
I think, yeah, and I've been watching both your Becoming Data Scientist blog and now your most recent project. But before we go more in depth in that, you mentioned something really interesting, which was that you decided to start your own company and use your own knowledge of databases and start your own company with that. So, if you had any, first of all, what was your motivation for that, and what challenges have you had or had to overcome, and what has been your overall experience in running a business?
Yeah, so I had started by doing a summer project with a professor to do some exercises in a database development book that he was designing. He was writing a book that had to do with, it was specifically for the class, it was like a workbook, and it had exercises for database development and building a website to connect to that database, and I tested out all the exercises to make sure they worked. At the same time, we got some, as soon as I graduated, the same professor and I had been working together throughout the year, and we got a contact from a government subcontractor that said, hey, we need somebody to design a database, and we're hoping you have a student that would want to come on as sort of an intern and try this project. So they said, well, we don't have any students at that level right now, but we do have someone just graduating that could take a look at it. So that was our first project. I designed a database that would track the movement of different stations in a floor of a building. So people would come to this floor of a building to join together as a team to do some analysis, and the government has different internet connections for different security levels. So you would need to know, does the station have this software, this hardware, this network connection, and be able to group them together and roll the stations around on the floor for whatever team was coming in. So I developed a database to track all of that, and they really liked it, and it got put into use. So I realized, hey, I'm pretty good at this. So that professor and I started the business, and I would do relational database design in Access or SQL Server. I would build the SQL queries. I would build the front-end website or a Visual Basic interface if it was a Windows program, and connect to that. And we just started doing small projects around town or for professors at JMU. And that went really well. So for a long time we were just doing these small projects back to back. And that professor actually is now my husband 10 years later.
Oh, wow.
So we worked together for a long time, and that's gone really well. It was definitely a good learning experience and the foundation to me being able to become a data analyst.
Cool. That's great, and I think it was definitely. I'm sure it's challenging on your side, and later on we might want to talk a little bit about. I know. As we're gonna talk, you have a lot of different side projects going on. I like maybe later we can talk a little bit about time management, because it must be difficult working with different side projects at a time. So I personally would like to know how you manage all of that. But before we talk about that, let's talk about your Becoming a Data Scientist blog. What were I think you mentioned already what your goals were when you started your blog. What do you feel you've accomplished? Well, first of all, I should ask, when was it that you officially started the blog?
I think it was in February 2014, I want to say. I'm
okay.
Not 100% sure. But I started it...
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And I started it while I was in grad school to track my projects and also to share with other learners online. I also wanted to track when things didn't go well, because I noticed a lot of the other blog posts I was seeing online were from experts or people that have been doing this for years, and they weren't necessarily accessible to true beginners. So I wanted to show, well, I mean, I do have some programming experience. I am in grad school, so I'm not, a high school type beginner, but I am new to a lot of this machine learning stuff and Python and things that I was learning. So not everything goes well, or sometimes I produce something and didn't understand what the output was. So I wanted to share that as I went along, and then also be able to revisit some of those projects later. And while I was doing that, I started getting good feedback from people on Twitter about what I was sharing, and not only from people that wanted to follow along, but people that had suggestions. They would say like, oh, well, I developed this particular package, so if you need any help, let me know. And I was so shocked that somebody that developed this Python package, would see what I was doing and want to help out. And since then I've done a lot more just experimental side projects. Not all of them get finished. Some of them I'm just testing out some software or playing with a new data set. And then I grew the Twitter community into a bunch of data science learners through the summer of data science. So that was, I don't know if you want me to get into that now, but that was definitely one of the things that I built through the blog.
Yeah, let's talk about it. So
sure.
How did the idea get started? I know I learned about it from Twitter. Actually, I know it was retweeted by Dr. DJ Patil. So that's when I learned about it, and I thought it was really cool. And at that time, I thought we might have to interview you for this series. So where did that idea came from, and what did you accomplish personally during the summer of data science?
Yeah, well, I actually just had the idea off the top of my head, and I said, I'm going to be focusing on data science this summer. It was the summer I was graduating from grad school, so I finally had some time, because I did grad school at the same time as I was working full-time, so I had had zero time to really pursue my interests. Even since I did my machine learning class, the next semester I couldn't really continue on that because I had other classes to take. So I finally graduated and was going to have a little bit of extra time. So I was hoping people would want to do it along with me. So I just tweeted and said, hey, what do you guys think about having this hashtag SODS for Summer of Data Science to track, communicate with each other about what projects we're doing to learn this summer. And people seem to love it. Some people had different suggestions for what the hashtag should be. And so we kind of just grouped around that. And I think over the summer, a few hundred people participated, at least 100, in terms of tweeting blog posts to me about, when they were doing similar things to what I was doing on my blog, or articles they found that helped them learn something, or asking questions to each other. So I started compiling those tweets. Actually, I still need to go back and do the last month of the Summer of Data Science tweets and compile them, but I have a blog post for each month of that. And my original goal was just to connect with other learners, and there are a lot of people out there that want to learn data science right now, so there are a lot of people to connect with, and that really grew, and like you said, a few famous people tweeted about it and got me some more attention, and I didn't really have to do much to manage it other than every once in a while I'd throw out a question like, hey, what are you doing this weekend for the Summer of Data Science? And people would respond and update us on what they were doing and how things were going.
So if someone else wanted to do something similar to this and dedicate a couple of months to learn a specific topic, what kind of suggestions? Do you have any suggestions for them? How should they approach this? Or because I know, like you mentioned, you had a great audience engagement. So do you have any suggestions for someone who would like to do something similar to this?
Sure. Well, first I would say if you want to just do general data science learning and connect with a community, then something general like Summer of Data Science, there's so many different topics. You're going to hear from people learning all kinds of things. If you wanted to get into something more specific, like learning about data visualization or something like that, I would try to connect with some of the people that are known for that topic on Twitter first and see if you can kind of join an existing community. Then when you tweet about it, they're likely to retweet the hashtag. In terms of the actual learning itself, there are so many different topics out there. I do recommend picking something specific, maybe not a topic, but a project. Like say you find an open data set about the population of a certain city, or about activities going on around the world on a certain topic or something, Twitter data or open data from the government. There are a lot of great data sets online that you can pull from, and come up with a plan for a project. And maybe you want to do some visuals to show what's in the data set, what kind of data is in there, what data is missing, can you create a chart of the ages of people with a certain subset. Maybe you want to do more machine learning, kind of clustering the groups of people in this data set. So kind of have a general idea of what you want to learn, and then as you read different blogs or pick up different courses or sites, even if you're just learning the very basics, you can kind of tune in on the things that will get you further in your project. And I think it helps keep you focused, because it's really easy to kind of feel like, well, I'm not getting anywhere. I've learned 6 different topics, and there's more to learn with data science. When am I ever going to feel like I've become a data scientist? So going through a project like that, where you can do a piece at a time, but the overall project has a goal, I think would help. And that's something I hope to do soon. And just pick a data set and pick a problem and kind of go at it from all different angles.
And since during the summer of data science, you did several small projects and small experiments. It doesn't have to be specifically during the summer of data science, but overall, while working on your blog, did you have any favorite projects that you've worked on, or maybe a project that you think helped you understand? Like you said, you have a focus, you target. I want to learn this, or I want to focus on this one goal. Did you have any project that you think was of specific, special importance, helping you in that journey, or any specific projects that you may want to talk a little bit about, and maybe tell us what the project was about and how you approached the project itself?
Yeah, one project was one that I did for my final project in my machine learning class, and we got to pick any data set and almost any data analysis approach, and we had a very short period of time, but I ended up picking data from my day job, which had to do with people that had not given a gift to the university yet, had not made a donation, and to find out which ones might be most likely to make a donation in the next year. And some motivation behind that might be, well, if we're going to send out a mailing, it may not be economically feasible to mail every single person that's ever graduated from the university. But if we can target the group of people that might be most likely to give, then that would help narrow down the cost, or make it more likely that you're going to get a response to your mailing. So that was the first one I started with, and I pulled some data based on the class years of the alumni, the degree they graduated from, whether they had received communication from us before. None of them had given before, so I couldn't use giving as an indicator. The zip code they lived in, how far from the university they lived, all kinds of data points like that. And I didn't know a whole lot about what I was doing at that point, but I ran it through, I used the scikit-learn package in Python, and I ran it through the random forest algorithm. And it actually generated an output that kind of made sense. It found that I think people that had just graduated were most likely to become donors, because if they've been a non-donor for 15 years, it's unlikely they're going to convert this year. That's a tough group to get. But people that just graduated from the university might respond to a mailing, because there's a bunch of people that are going to become alumni donors for the first time because they just became alumni for the first time. Or it might be people that participated in a certain volunteer activity. They've just re-engaged with the university. So there's definitely a lot more I could do with that project. But that was the first one that was my taste of like real life data that I knew a lot about, and running it through an algorithm. Now what I ended up doing at the end, I didn't fully understand what it was telling me. It would give me some information about which people, but I'm kind of guessing as to why it gave me those people. That particular algorithm, I didn't know how to make it tell me why it put people in a certain class. So that's something I definitely want to revisit and use some other software and other techniques I've learned since then, to get more information so I could actually communicate it back to the university and say, here's why these people were put in the likely to give class, not just they fell in there and I eyeballed the data set and it looks like it's these kind of people. I want to know more about the random forest the trees that it grew and figure out what were the big indicators. So that was one project. Another one was a market basket analysis project I started during the summer of data science. I actually still haven't finished it because I came up with some computational problems and I need to resolve that. And it's a website called Uses This. They have an API, and basically they interview people in different industries and find out what hardware and software they use, and it generates like an automated linking of all the different pieces of software. So you have an API and you could query it. You can say, well, people that use this kind of software also use this kind of software, which is what I was trying to build a recommender system on. So you can right now you can put in a piece of software and it would tell you what other pieces of software that person uses, or it could find out what pieces of software people in a certain group all use frequently. But it wasn't able to do the full recommender system I wanted to develop. I needed to convert it so that was in matrix form, and I don't remember all the details right now. It's been several months since I worked on it, but that's one I want to revisit, and it was exciting. And that was one where the person involved in building the Python package contacted me. The person that designed the Uses This website contacted me. Everyone seemed excited in terms of helping me out. So I definitely need to pull through and finish that one. But that was another example where I was just trying something out, trying to get it to work. It kind of worked. Didn't fully work the way I wanted it to, but it's getting there, and I will revisit it. So those are two memorable projects in terms of exploring and learning and getting something out of it.
So since you're mentioning some third-party APIs, I might as well ask. Do you have, or would you recommend to someone who wants to work on a project, any interesting data sets or any interesting third-party APIs that are available to the public that might be of interest to someone maybe doing their undergrad program and wanna start working on a few projects on their own?
I don't know many right off the top of my head. That's something I could create a blog post about. Actually, that's a really good idea for a blog post. I kind of just go find one whenever I have an idea. There's no particular one that I keep going back to. There's definitely, I think, a UCI machine learning database that has a bunch of data sets that are kind of prearranged for different types. Like some are good for clustering, some are good for linear regression. I know data.gov has some United States government data sets. I pretty much just Google it. There's a course I think on lynda.com about finding certain data sets. There's tons of blog posts, but that's something I think that would make a good blog post to put on my website, but I don't have a certain one that I always go back to. Okay,
no, that's great. I think we are all going to be watching your blog and waiting for a blog post, maybe in the future. All right, so let's talk a little bit about one of your most recent projects. It's been going for a couple of months now. The Data Sci Guide. It's datasciguide.com, right?
Yes.
How is it different from your Becoming Data Scientist blog? And I know you're also looking for contributors, so how can people contribute to that?
Okay, so when I did Becoming a Data Scientist, that one was really to track my own progress and kind of follow along with other people learning data science. But it wasn't really guiding anybody anywhere. And between some conversations on Twitter and just my own experience, I realized like there's not a lot of information out there to really guide massive amounts of online courses and books and podcasts and conferences. What's worth investing your time in or your money in and what's not, and based on what level you're currently at. So I started this website where I started collecting different data science resources, and datasciguide.com is built on WordPress. So I started out by creating a custom post type where I can, create a form that had different types, like the author's Twitter account, everything I wanted to track along with the content so that it could become a database over time. And also found a review plugin and customized that so that people, when they submit a review, don't just put 1 through 5 stars, and a short blurb, they can also enter in their level at the time of using that content. And then after they submit that, there's actually a more detailed survey, it's optional, about how you use that content and what you got out of it and why you used it. So I'm hoping to collect that information to eventually build a recommender system and learning paths that will be a guide to people coming to the site. So it's really about learning data science, learning different topics, no matter where you are in your level of expertise. So what people can do to help out is write reviews. Like, that's the main thing I'm going to need right now. I have all this content collected. I have a whole bunch more bookmarked. I have so much to add. I hope it's going to become a really huge directory. But the only benefit of having a huge directory is if you could navigate your way through it. So if any of you have, listened to a podcast or gone to a blog like this one, you can. I'll put this one up on the site and you can review it, or use tutorials or books, anything you've used that has been valuable to you or hasn't been valuable to you. It's good to know when it doesn't work out. Please come to datasciguide.com and find the content and write a review. And if the content isn't there, you can tweet me at datasciguide and tell me that there's something you're interested in reviewing that's not on the site yet, and I will prioritize it and put it up there so you can review it. So that's the best way to help me out right now, and to help others out, because the whole purpose of the site is to help other data science learners. So any reviews, even if you're an early beginner, are definitely helpful.
I think, yeah, I hope it becomes a really huge resource for everyone, because, like you said, there are so many resources, both online and books and courses. So I think it is definitely a good idea. I personally hope that it does become huge and becomes something that people actually contribute and can learn something from.
Thank you.
So we've spoken about several projects that you have going on: the Becoming Data Sci blog, your Data Sci Guide. You mentioned that you have a full-time job and you have your own company. So I want to ask, how do you manage it all? What does a normal day look like for you? How do you have any time management suggestions? Because although we want to focus, of course, on the data mining, data science thing, I think it is important that we keep our skills up to date. So it is, I think what you're doing is great on having several side projects, some of them for your own purpose, right, for your own benefit, on learning new technologies. So how do you go around managing your time and working on so many different side projects at the same time?
Well, I'm not the best time manager, and there's always something that has to drop. So I think the first thing to do is to figure out your goals and keep those in sight. So if something new comes up, you can't say yes to everything. There are people that want to connect online to start a new project, and it's something I would love to get involved in, but I can't really add to my current plate without dropping something. So it's definitely good to have goals in mind, so that when something does come up, you can decide if it's really worth jumping on. I have a habit of always starting something and not always following through to the end. So I think I'm a constant learner, and I always want to be learning the next thing. So sometimes once I've learned it, I don't necessarily pursue it through to the expert level. So I'm kind of a generalist, and I've got a basic understanding of a lot of different things, and I understand how to think through a data problem. But I'm not necessarily fast at doing the different types of analysis, even though I know what type of analysis I can pursue, and I know how to do it, and with a few Google searches and reminders of my bookmarks, I could do it. But I'm not a fast expert at any one of those things, and maybe that's okay. Being a generalist and knowing where to find the next resource, or how to refer back to something I've done and remind myself, or how to find a resource when I get stuck coding. Like, I think that's a valuable skill. And so definitely having a set of resources to fall back on to help you keep going when you get stuck is important. In terms of managing time, I mean, clearly my full-time job takes up most of my week, but on weekends and on evenings I tend to be sitting at home, reading through Twitter, finding different articles, and I'll bookmark things I want to work on in the future, but I have to stop myself from starting every project sometimes. So that's a challenge for me, but definitely finding a focus helps with that, and deciding, well, I'll bookmark that for the future, but I don't have to stop everything and start that right now. Or, deciding, well, I'll give myself a few hours to explore that, and if it looks like it's going to be a huge time sink, maybe I shouldn't go too far with it. Or if something I could just learn in an hour, maybe it's worth reading or getting a book on the topic. So I'm the kind of person that's always reading, always looking online, always experimenting. So in terms of time management, the biggest challenges are when something's due. So if I commit to a project, for my business, and I have to do something by a certain date, pretty much everything else has to stop. A lot of my data science learning will stop. But what I've done with DataSci Guide, that's been my pet project recently. So what's cool is that it overlaps with my learning. So I can learn things and add that to DataSci Guide. And by building DataSci Guide and building a recommender system, which I'm going to get into next, I'm enhancing my data science skills. I'm enhancing my resume. I'm learning things that meet my long-term goals. So by going off and launching this online community and a new website, it takes a lot of time, but because it's overlapping with my goals and what I want to do anyway, I'm able to build this whole new project without stopping everything that I'm already doing. It's contributing to my learning. So I think that's important too, kind of figuring out, is something worth pursuing? Does it fit in with your overall goals? And try to stick to that. Because if you're someone like me that's curious, you want to start everything, and starting tons of projects and not finishing any of them doesn't help. So keeping a focus. Also, just in terms of not getting overwhelmed. Some people go to lots of conferences, or they're constantly trying to finish complete projects, or take on too many jobs where you're committed to other people, or if you don't finish something, then you're not doing your job. Kind of separating out your personal learning set and what you're doing for other people, I think, is helpful. Because if you commit to too many projects and you're just following through and not completing them for others or for your job, that would definitely put stress in your life, and you don't need a lot of stress. So you kind of have to balance out what you're doing for yourself, what you're doing for work, what you're doing for long term, and what does long term mean. Do I need to learn this today, or can I learn this next month and it will still be okay? So kind of prioritizing definitely helps with time management too. And for me, it's fun. So being able to read data science, it doesn't stress me out to read blogs about data science. I don't feel like, oh, this is my job, it's taking up my time, I would rather be out doing something else. Like, that is my relaxing time at night, to read through blogs and read through tutorials and watch videos or something. So if you love it and it's really a part of you and it excites you and it relaxes you, then you can learn without it being an additional stress on your time or yourself.
I completely agree, 100%. All right, so before we end the interview, do you have any recommendations for someone who's just entering the field? I know you recently, some time ago, a couple of months ago maybe, you wrote a post called Entry-Level Data Analyst Skills. So what do you think are those skills that you need to be a data analyst in whatever field, or specialize in whatever field you want to?
And I also read an article lately that said something like there's no such thing as an entry-level data scientist. Data scientists are coming from other fields. So one thing is definitely pick an area that you're interested in, an industry. Like for me, fundraising for universities is something that I'm interested in. I'm glad to commit my time to, so that's I could focus on the data and become have business knowledge in one area. So definitely gaining business knowledge and understanding of the data in a certain industry is valuable. I would say that SQL is really important, because understanding the relational data underneath and being able to query a database and pull data out is often going to be the first step in any data science project. If you're a consultant, you're going to have to go to a company and figure out their database and query it, pull out some data to do analysis. So that's a good one to know. Statistics, basic statistics, or knowing how to read about the more advanced statistics. If you're doing something like a machine learning algorithm and you need to evaluate the results, there are a lot of automated things that you can kind of drag and drop or plug into your code or use an automated system, but really understanding what those evaluation metrics mean and what is a good result, or when you need to go back and rethink, that's important. So I would say statistics are important. Excel, you could do a lot in Excel, Microsoft Excel, or any other spreadsheet system. But in Excel, there's advanced things like pivot tables or VLOOKUPs, or there's Excel plugins for data mining. So if you're not ready to jump into a whole new software and you're familiar with Excel, kind of stretch the limits of Excel. Pull in a CSV of a large data set and see what you can do with it, but build some visualizations. So I think Excel is a good skill to have. Any kind of reporting tool, like I use IBM Cognos at work. There's another popular one called Tableau. And actually, I think there's a free version of Tableau online that you can use to create some visualizations. So any kind of tool where you can create a report of what you found or a visual of what you found, that's good to learn and play with. And I think one of the other things I had written during that time was able to communicate with both technical and non-technical people. Anytime you work with data, especially if you're consulting or doing it on the job, you have to be able to communicate why you're selecting certain data, what your analysis means, and then how good the results are. So you need to be able to talk to technical people to understand, if you're working with other programmers or statisticians or the IT people that manage your database, or the business people that you're going to be presenting your results to. So any opportunity you get to ask questions about data, be able to converse with the people that manage the data, and also ask questions of the business side. What's important? If I find a result related to this, would you even use it? Or also being able to make a case for why it is important to know something about the data. So communication is big. And let me see, I think I have that post pulled up. So the data analyst traits I said were being a problem solver, being curious and enjoying learning, being persistent, enjoying communicating, questioning results, being an analytical thinker. I think one of those that's important is persistence. Any kind of programming or analysis, it's an iterative process. You're going to do something, maybe find a result, maybe not. Do it again a different way. Maybe find a result and present it to somebody and they ask another question. Go back to the data, build a visual and tweak it and build it another way. So it's a very iterative problem solving. You're always going to run up against bugs in your code or data you don't understand or something's not working right. So sticking with it and realizing this is part of the process. It's not a failure. You just keep going, keep at it. It's iterative. Having that kind of mentality is important in any kind of programming job or data analysis or data science.
Renee, thank you so much for your time. Before we go, you're very active on Twitter. Mm-hmm. You have several projects. So real quick, can you tell everyone where can they find you on Twitter? Mm-hmm. What are, again, say the several websites you have, so in case they're interested in, and where can they find you and go see all those different side projects that you have?
Yeah, my main blog is becomingadatascientist.com, and you could find me on Twitter at becomingdatasci. That's my most active account. And my new website is datasciguide.com, and that's at datasciguide on Twitter. I have them up there. I'm not sure if they're readable on my whiteboard.
I can barely. Yeah, it is.
But find me online, and any one of those will connect to the other one. So if you find one, you'll be able to find the rest of them. And I hope to see you there soon.
Thank you again so much for your time, and I know I'll be following your work, and I hope some of our viewers and listeners do so as well.
Great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.